What if seeking isn't about finding answers, but growing into the silence they leave behind? At some point, the questions fall away, and what's left is the light we've been trying to name. This is Seekers and Finders.
We're in a neutral, harmonious space awaiting the presence of those who are searching for something other than that dualistic, judgmental experience. So this is why we're carrying this torch, is so that we can enlighten anyone that's ready to be enlightened, and not by an epistemology, but from the heart, from the part that cares and helps them belong, because so many people are alone, they don't feel like they belong anywhere.
So we are really excited today to welcome Flo Magdalena to our podcast. She's written a wonderful book, I Remember Union, and it's 506 pages, which I actually finished 2 days ago. I have to admit that I was totally drawn into it. I started living it. So from my point of view, I was there. And just before we start our conversation, I just want to make mention that I have personally had experiences in both dreams and meditations with Yeshua. So for me, this story was very close to the heart. Welcome, Flo, and thank you for joining us. Let's start this conversation because I'm sure everybody is interested to know how this all came about, what your background is, and how you came to this wonderful vision.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, first of all. It's lovely to meet both of you. Very nice to meet you. And I'm very glad to hear that we're so close together physically, so we can meet in person at some point. So I was born in 1948 in Delaware, and my dad had just, some years prior to that, returned from Iwo Jima. He was a Marine. My mother was a nurse, and so I was brought up as a Protestant. And Mary Magdalene in the Protestant epistemology was a lady of the night, as they would say very nicely and kindly, right? So I knew that from being brought up that way, and I just was kind of having that in the back of my mind. I had no idea that I had any spiritual acumen at all, that I could open to that type of understanding. It was very far away from what I knew, and I went through my life, and I became a nurse. And somewhere in there, there was it was an evening with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and all of my compatriots, nursing students were there, and other students were there, and she spoke about how spirit has this capacity to truly touch us in ways that we scientifically don't understand. And that was kind of my first introduction to an idea about spirit. And then shortly after that, I read a book called The Ghost of Flight 401, which was about an Eastern Airlines air crash in 1973 in the Everglades, down in the south of Florida itself. And so I began to do some research about that, and there was a book written also from a woman who was a stewardess who had more what we could think of as psychic abilities. And they started to talk about how we could look at this situation and see how the subsequent, let's say, just appearance of one of the fellows who had died there, the flight engineer, um, he began to appear in a lot of the planes that had some parts that had been part of the original plane that crashed. So this fellow was being recorded in the logs of by the pilots. He would warn of a fire in the galley or whatever it was, and so the FAA was, tearing the pages out of the logs. So this guy John Fuller, who lived in Connecticut, did some research, and in his research, he contacted a woman named Patricia Hayes, and she was able to connect with this. I'm trying to think of what this guy's name. Anyway, this fellow was sent back to his new space in the heavens, and the woman who did that was Patricia Hayes. And so I started to study with her. Basically, that's how I became from a regular, very anxious psychiatric nurse to beginning to look at how there are other parts of us, how aspects of us are able to understand and learn and open to all these different spaces that we don't scientifically yet fully understand. So that was in 1970. 78, 79. And I began then to work with the Heart Association. I developed with a friend of mine the first stress management program in Fairfield, Connecticut. This was before we actually thought that stress had any factor in heart disease. And then I worked with the Lung Association, and I taught meditation and all kinds of things to open up to stop smoking. And I just kind of went along, and I did therapeutic touch and Reiki and all those things that we do when we're endeavoring to learn from a very cognitively based understanding to a much more spiritually based understanding. And from there, I actually began to receive what I could think of as confirmation. Patricia Hayes taught us how to open to our spiritual understanding and our acumen. And so I began to do that. I began to do readings with folks. And then in 1986 is, I guess, when the really big wham happened, when the ones with no names came to me, the nameless ones. They are etheric guidance counselors for each person, and they give us an understanding of why we're here and what the purpose of this incarnation is, what the foundation of that is for us, how we can open to it and understand it more deeply, and also give us each individual assistance from our soul to live that more fully, to actually step into that space and be that person that we endeavored to create before we came, kind of idea. So the nameless ones also assisted me in creating many, many different types of programs. And also my grandmother did too, because I was sitting with my grandmother. I'm just going to give you a little idea of right when I was starting this exploration into my, what we could think of as my current capacity to open. I was sitting across from her, and she had aphasia, and she's trying to finish a sentence, and she's trying and trying and trying, and I'm looking at her very intently. And then right across her forehead, I see this little, about a 1/4 inch high iridescent green light, and it's coming from the left side of her forehead over here by her temple and into the middle of her forehead and stopping. So I'm really naive, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what would happen if that line went all the way around her head? So I just did that psychically, and she spoke the sentence. Okay. So because I was clearly available to see differently than I had been before, I could see that we have a thought wave. So I began to create just programs like that, like how do we move into someone's consciousness, see what their thought wave is, help them to learn better, to not have phobias, whatever that is. And that was one of the things the Nameless Ones helped me to move from that understanding.
Your science mind never got in the way of your mystical mind. You never questioned or doubted from a science point of view what's going on here?
Well, no, because what Kubler-Ross taught me way, way back was science doesn't know everything yet. We have to almost prove it, don't we? I mean, because there's no parameters for measuring this kind of thing, right?
Perfect. Yes.
I
I,
remember
I
Olga Worrell saying, like they used to put, all these leads on my head and don't have it done because it's going to ruin your hair. I mean, Olga Worrell, and all of this is, yeah, it's beyond the beyond, isn't it?
Well, Donald Hoffman, who's a cognitive psychologist and a brilliant scientist, is moving into the world of the other realities. So here's a science mind that's actually going into a multidimensional understanding of
Yeah.
our existence. And I guess that's the next step in science shifting to that place. So let's continue on here.
Okay, so I was in 19, let's see, that's 86. In 89, I had an experience in the church, which is what this book is about that you were speaking about, called I Remember Union. And that was with Mary Magdalene and with Christ. Now, in 1987, do you remember the harmonic convergence? 1987, August of 87, right? So I have these people. I had a workshop center in Northfield, Connecticut, called High Visions. And I had these people, all these people came, and this fella named Piet Vanderhorst came, and we did an exchange. And at the end of the exchange, he says to me, "You were really close to Christ. You were probably the closest woman to Christ." And right then I said, well, I must have been the lady of the night, just knowing myself as I am, a good Taurus woman, So, okay, so here I am. And so then in 88 at Easter, I start to cry. Things are, crazy. And I'm like, what is going on? And then in 89, I was in DC. I was actually attending a whole brain seminar, learning about how our left and brain right work together in terms of learning, because I'm a teacher as well. So I go to the church because I'm told, I very rarely hear words meant for me to follow, like as a voice. I have a lot of telepathy and intuition, but so I hear this, you must go to church, right? And so I always listen, and if anybody asks me if I want to do something, or always say yes, because even if I don't know how to do it, when I show up, it will happen. And that's what I've learned. One of the things I've learned is just say yes, because it's always there. So anyway, I'm in church, and it's very strange because it's a table with 12 people standing around it. And the minister is right across from me, and over his left shoulder, I begin to see Christ beckoning to me. And the thing that was so amazing about it was that I could no longer stay as a woman who didn't know or understand, because he was saying, you come because there's something here for you. I had no idea. I ran back to my seat. I'm sitting there. People are around me, and I began to feel as perhaps, and I won't say Mary Magdalene, but perhaps someone from 2,000 years ago might feel, being in a situation that they don't understand. They're in a society they don't understand, and there's something happening that is so powerful that they just want to run away. That's how I felt. I just wanted to run away. And while I'm sitting there, I felt this heat. And the heat, I have to say, just being a little bit funny here, I had menopause when I was 52, and that was heat, but this was heat. This was just like there was a flame burning in front of me. It was amazing. And he came into me at that point. And I've been thinking about that a lot, because there has to be a purpose for that. And I think the book was the purpose for that. I think coming into an awareness of how the divine enters the human and how we can connect together through all time is what I was being shown. It was quite amazing. And I did run from the church, and I just didn't know what that was about until a little while later. I woke up one morning, and in my mind is, you must write the story of Mary Magdalene. And I always say yes, so I said yes, and then I moved actually back to DC. I was there from Connecticut because I was seeing clients and I had an agent there, but I moved back into DC, and because there were so many people there that were part of the story, I later discovered that was why I went back. Many people, and some of the characters that are in I Remember Union were, if we could think about the stream, the stream of Magdalene, the stream of Christ, the stream of Mother Mary, how we have these orientations to these characters or these beings or these wonderful ones, holy ones, and we have a connection to them and we don't know why. And sometimes it's because we're an aspect of them. And like there wasn't this in my understanding from the ones with no names that I write about in the book. Just for clarification, it is that there were 144 aspects of all of those individuals who were close to that story. And there were 1,000 individuals close to the story. So that becomes the 144,000, the individuals who are ready to stand in this time, I believe, to open that door, to open that gateway.
You use the first person in this book as Mary, and I'm wondering, did you feel you were speaking as Mary or receiving her story and giving it form?
Can I say both?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean,
For
I'm sure people are going to ask this question. Does this woman, Flo Magdalena, think that that she's Mary? So it's the process by which the transformation happened that I think we should go to now.
Yeah. Um, so when I ran out of the church, I began to feel that there was some connection to Mary Magdalene. And I sat in my car, and Christ appeared on the windshield about this tall, about 4 inches tall. He was right there. And he began to speak to me. And then I knew that I had been part of that story, like without a doubt. But what I also learned was that there's not one of us. We had a group soul then. So I've met other Magdalens. I have the name Magdalene because I went to a church service one time after subsequently, and the minister said, if you had to go before God right now, what would your name be? And in Hebrew, when you write things down, it has to be the truth. So I said, well, I had just gotten a divorce. I said, I'm not that name. I'm not my birth name. I'm going to put that at the name. And I used the A because apparently in Hebrew, you can take the vowels and change them all around. So I did Magdalena because then it wasn't like I'm Magdalene. It was a kind of inclusion of that consciousness, but not directly. And I don't claim to be that. And I don't claim anything about the story because the story is what I received. And Mary did tell me much of the story, and I remembered much of the story, and I sat at my computer and I wrote it.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up because I really want to give you a firm foundation for people to understand this book and not believe that it's just coming through you through hubris of your own, that you did in fact have this mystical experience that many people have had these kinds of experiences. And we know that there's things being channeled all over YouTube. So this is just another form of it. And for me, maybe it's because I have such a vivid imagination. But like I said at the beginning, I was totally absorbed in it. And I felt that I was living in the experience as I was reading it. I mean, one thing I want to say, I had a past life experience through this friend who is a counselor. And when I went into my past lives, I went directly into biblical times. And I was walking down a street in Judea with a man that wasn't necessarily Yeshua, but was this type of sage or figure. And it was the only life that I saw in my past life experience. So when I read your story, I was there. And, I'm very happy that our friend Dia sent you our way because now I'm going to go back to the book. I wanted to read it quickly, and I highlighted so many things in the book. I'm going to go back now and read it. So there's a lot of things that I want to bring up here. And this may be out of order, but this is a very human Jesus.
Yes.
This is not this iconic figure that everybody thinks is the Son of God, quote unquote. This is a human being, a man who had an extraordinarily high spiritual experience for whatever reason. There have been others in the past. The mythical Krishna, he has a story. He came down to earth. He did all these things. And to the Hindus, I mean, this is their Jesus, the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata. This is their story. And there are other saints or sages along the way. So from a practical point of view, Yeshua is a human who came down with a purpose. And you talk about their, okay, before I get to that, your portrayal of Judas, who is included in this story, is radically different from the traditional story. How did the sense of him acting with a divine plan and knowing it through the record, and I would imagine we're talking about the Akashic record right now, first emerge for you?
Well, right in the very beginning of the book, there is an interview that each of those characters had with the ones with no names. Okay. So there are cosmic guidance counselors, and in the swing between worlds, which is the space that I think of as perhaps the Bardo or something similar, each of the individuals come before them and they say, what is it your time to do? What do you want to come here for? This is what the readings I do are about, is actually opening the door to those understandings. And Judas is to learn how to love himself, and how when he is alone, he will be able to honor his own being. And so he comes in to do this dastardly deed, and it's planned, apparently, from the beginning. There is a design, and we all have a design. And as well, I was just thinking about Yeshua, who came, he came on Saturday. I sent you that recording. He's saying actually that many of these characters that we're looking at right now in our politics are returns of some of these individuals 2,000 years ago, and they're going to kind of do a whole circular consciousness now and come back into hopefully what they could consider to be the kingdom of heaven, that all of us have that understanding, and that it's someplace inside of us. And so Judas had that. He had that place inside of him, and it's basically listening to that and coming into that happened.
So the same world that they all started in with Yeshua and Mary and Judas is basically the soul's world where we all start? Or is
Yes.
there, so they didn't come from a higher place. They all started where all the other souls start.
Well, that's the information that I got, that they were with the nameless ones in the swing between worlds. Now, I don't know if the swing between worlds is in other worlds. That's not something I've ever explored.
Okay. Now, Judas slipped into darkness despite his spiritual awareness and feels deeply human.
Like many of us, yes.
Yeah, so what did this reveal to you about the challenges of being both aware and embodied?
Well, basically that it's a choice. That remembering that we are light and light we shall remain is a choice. And, when I'm working with our community, it's always about holding it so someone can see it and so that they know it's real. And we have to carry it so that they know it's real. And many times in the world, it doesn't look real and it doesn't look attainable or accessible.
I want you to tell the story as you told it in the book, but there's a couple of things. And one is that Yeshua did not die in the cave, that Joseph of Arimathea carted him away, and he lived, Yeshua, for another 50 or 60 years. Mary and Judas went to France eventually. They had intimate contact. Mary had their baby. There's this whole idea of this line of Sinclair in France that people have talked about. That is the line of Mary Magdalene and her joining with Yeshua as a couple. However, in the book, you say that Yeshua understood that he was not to plant any seed in a woman as a being on earth. Am I correct in that understanding? Okay.
Yes.
So the child now is the product of Mary Magdalene and Judas Iscariot. What I'd like you to do now that I've prefaced this whole thing, is kind of lay out the steps, if you could, from the childhood, and I don't want to give away the whole book, but if you could briefly give us a synopsis of the childhood with Mary and Yeshua, and then Judas coming into their life and moving along the line, so people understand exactly how this happened. And then, of course, they'll go out and buy the book, and they'll be, wonderfully thrilled by everything that's said there, because you would have explained it first as the author, and they will have it in their mind. So please, if you could do that, that would be great.
So and this is my understanding. So from my understanding, Mary Magdalene was the daughter of a rabbi, and her mother and the women of the village and Mother Mary were goddesses, in tune with Isis, in tune with Sophia, right? The divine feminine. And they would meet in caves, and they would open the awareness of young women to what the world was like through images and through deep shamanic work. Okay, the deep shamanic work that I now do with soul recognition to a certain extent. So Mary Magdalene understood that her destiny was to be a healer and to open people to their soul. And she was taught by Mother Mary that there's a seed of light inside each of us. And that seed of light is what opens us to our divine purpose and aligns us and allows us to understand deeply like what it's all about. Okay. And so she learned that through the women. Jesus went away with Joseph of Arimathea, and he did a lot of exploration, but they did meet while they were children, and they understood that they had a destiny together. And I'm not sure quite that it was as explicit as, going to do this and that, but they knew that they were to come together in some way to support this evolution of consciousness. All right. So the thing about them was that they had telepathic communication, and they could be away from each other and then come back, and they didn't need words. They didn't need the normal kinds of reassurances about each other. They understood that there was a divine connection, and Jesus understood from the very beginning when he was in the swing between worlds that Mary would be with him, and Mary understood that Jesus would be with her. All right. So the idea was that Yeshua was androgynous. He was both masculine and feminine, and he had the capacity to go into the crowds with his heart so open that he would assist others to understand what that meant, not only by words, but by his deep, deep presence. And the connection between he and Mary was so divinely inspired and connected through their mutual design that they were able to foundation together a love that was beyond human understanding. Now, that to me makes sense. There's a part where they show me they went into Banyas, which is that beautiful right by the god of the god Pan. There's a waterfall. It's still there. I went and looked at it, and they would go into the water, and they could become not just human, but they could use their lungs and as gills, and they could just transform things because they understood how to work with the nature of being itself and also all of the spirits of nature. So that was part of that. Judas comes into the picture as a very disturbed young man, actually. And Mary works with him to assist him to understand his design and to open to his power and his understanding of how it's all going to be. And so the three of them were very closely connected to the design, as was Mother Mary and Joseph of Arimathea. My understanding of it from the connection between Judas and Mary was that that was a human connection, and that her connection with Yeshua was divine. I know there are a lot of I've presented with Margaret Starbird. I know there's all kinds of things, and this is the story that came to me. Now the irony of the Merovingian dynasty is perhaps that the lineage is from Judas, which to me is profound, because then it's like, oh, wait a minute, am I the good? Am I the bad? Am I the this? Am I the esteemed? Am I the most honored person on the planet? Or am I an offspring of someone that betrayed? It's a very interesting idea. And it may be that I received this just to put that into our consciousness.
Well,
That is,
how did you receive it though in time wise? Because I mean, this is a long book. How long did it take you? Did you go into different sessions to receive the different chapters?
see, this is not a channeled book. The only two parts that are channeled are the epilogue and the chapter when Mary wakes up and she sees the war that's happened, the wars on the planet that are happening now, and she's looking at the world that's been created from what they wanted to create, and she sees what's happening. You see, so it's not created. So okay, so that's so, and then okay, I'm sorry. So then after that, she goes into this. The Lord and the goddess will come together. It's a prophecy about how duality will end. That was channeled, and the epilogue was channeled. But other than that, I remembered it. I sat at the computer, I saw it, and I wrote it.
So it's basically stream of consciousness through your intuitive self, which is a beautiful way to write because you're not feeding anything. You're just feeling it. It's coming in through your intuition, and you're just putting it down in words.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of channeled work, I believe, also has the influence of the person who is channeling it when they come out with their interpretation of it. But
Right.
because you did stream of consciousness, it makes more sense now to me. And the flow for me now is even better. So you'd never talk about the disciples. The only one you talk about is Thomas.
Before we get to that, I have a question. I read it in the book, but I don't remember. So how will duality end?
Oh, wonderful question. Duality ends when we remember. We remember that we're one. Remember, there's really no separation, and all of us are working for that right now. Each of us talking,
Okay,
listening.
so I totally get that. As in other words, in terms of the individual, duality ends when the individual remembers who he or she has always been and will always be. But I thought I interpreted, I guess, as duality ending for the collective or the planet. That's not what you were referring to in the book.
Well, I think it ends when we all remember, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good because to me that's the central question. The question of duality. ending and realization of being.
And well, and it's what, like, my work is based on that, actually. Creating a community where everyone is accepted no matter what. And just learning to love people, because that's Christ's idea here, is you don't have to like everybody, but you do have to love them. So that idea that there's a place for everyone and that we belong. And that's really what this is about, because once we go through that space of understanding, then we have the room to let everyone and everything in, and then things begin to change. And we saw that yesterday in politics, that, there are things that people believe in and honor, and that they'll stand up for. And we're all endeavoring to do that. We're endeavoring to do that. Yeah.
Okay, but for the people who are watching this, who have seen the series Pluribus on Apple TV, this is not like that. Because everybody in the earth, on the planet, except for 11 or some people, are all into peace, love, and all of that. But it's not like that. Everybody still can enter into a state of oneness on the earth and still be who they are, as part of that oneness. That they still have their sensations, their idiosyncrasies, but they've understood what the truth is about how they're living. And so it brings them into a state of divineness, we'll say. For you to say, and it made total sense to me, so maybe I'm crazy, but when you said, that Joseph took him in the cart and whisked him away and hid him, and he lived for another 50, 60 years, I said, that really makes total sense, because they couldn't find his body. I'm still wondering if he did get speared in the side, which would have been the death knell. But you never really talk about that in the book. You just talk about him going into the cave and leaving the cave. So I guess that wasn't an important part of the.
Well, we do that. We do that in the movie that we're doing. We show that in the movie. I got I put in what I received. And people say, well, why didn't you put in Lazarus? And why didn't you do? I said, I just what I received, I put in. I really paid attention to what was there. I didn't try to read. I didn't read anything else. Of course, this was published in 92. So it was one of the first books on Magdalene. But this, I didn't try to do anything. I just allowed.
Which is wonderful, because now you allowed those spaces to be filled in by people's imagination. And I think, well, therefore I am, but my imagination is the thing that creates the excitement in one's life. And in the right state of imaginative mind, it can open up so many doors into so many other dimensional states that allow for us as humans to see those other places. Mm-hmm. So you really did, by leaving those spaces open for us to imagine, I think that was a wonderful thing. And I think people who read the book will have the same kind of feeling about it. Of course, there's going to be these naysayers, but it doesn't matter. This book is meant for the people who are ready for.
The naysayers are going to be millions and millions and millions of Christians who recognize that this book blows the whole Christian theology right out the window.
Well, based on the idea that you mentioned Thomas, I mean, he was really the only one that wrote a gospel that was, really close to Yeshua, because from what I understand, all the other gospels were written anonymously and handed names by them, from what I've read, many, many years after Yeshua left the area. We'll say not died, but left the area, because he lived for so many more years. And then, they were construed by later leaders of the globe to basically write what they wanted to write, so that people would, believe them and conform to them. just like we're having now. And this is a really perfect example. The lies that are being told in politics right now, and the fact that people aren't even sitting down to do research about that they're lies, that they're just believing these lies. And the lies are getting deeper and deeper and deeper because the truth is starting to come out. So the lies are getting heavier. Anyway, let's move on from there. That was a great question, Gary. I really appreciate that. About duality.
Oh yeah, well
Yeah.
that's the key issue in all this stuff. In
Yeah.
other words, every spiritual exploration, everything without solving the quote unquote duality problem, it's all for naught because as long as there's duality, there's error and there's illusion. So that's the central thing. So to the extent that this book or any book or anything can help or facilitate the dissolution of duality, that's the value.
So could you express now your relationship in the world, Flo, after you've written this book, which was written in 1992, what you're doing and how that aligns with what, I mean, I think you believe that this book is kind of like a guide form for you and your own life to help this along. Am I wrong in that? I mean, are you you're going to make a movie out of it, so you want people to understand this, and you have your own group of people that you're working with to facilitate this. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually have continued working with the ones with no names, and they're a foundation of soul support systems, which is I created in 1994. All of the work that I do is based upon Magdalene and Yeshua and the Nameless Ones, but not specifically religious or endeavoring to get anyone to be anything. It's more that the underlying philosophy, energy, intention, and direction is aligned with that divine message that Christ brought. And it's connected to each of us having what Magdalene brought, which is this understanding of the seed of light. I've never seen it anywhere else. And that's that chrysalis, that we call it the chrysalis. And that the big chrysalis is the swing between worlds, and the little chrysalis is the microcosm inside us. So I teach that. I show people how to open that, to live from that, and to use that as their guide. I am so cognitive still. Being a psychiatric nurse, and I worked in ICU, I did all kinds of things, and I was like, and it isn't always, even now, and this is like, I don't know, probably 50 years later, always the first thing that happens to me in the morning. It's like, wait a minute, I have to remember that my soul is guiding my whole trip. And when I come into that space is when I am locked into that integrity that I have to stand in this world. And I teach people how to do that. We do soul recognition, which is to open that space like a shamanic experience. We do John Henry work, and John Henry's one of my guides. It's called HeartThread. So we do heart work. And basically, it's not like I'm doing it to you. It's your heart speaking to you. So I would love to do one of those one time. If you wanted to experience that, we could record it so people understand what it is. I've done healing for a long time. 40 minutes, someone's transformed.
Now let's do it because actually I was talking to Stefan and saying, no, we love to do demonstrations. We've had people, so show us so if we can do a demonstration, either, one-on-one or here collectively, we definitely want to do it. I just want to ask one quick question here and clear up something. So would you say the chrysalis, would that be the equivalent of the spark of God? That according to some traditions, we all come in to this existence with carrying within us the spark of God. So that would be the okay, because that makes total sense.
Yes, and it's a seed inside of us that we came to grow. And it's in our soul. And I have that, with my understanding, right underneath the xiphoid process where the ribs come together, the base of the sternum. So, and I think they found, is it Atman or something in the Indian? After cremation, this fellow said to me, there was a pod left. And I think it was my grandmother's soul, and it's just kind of interesting because I channel everybody, which is interesting. And somehow I have that access. But I don't think of it like anything I do personally. It's, like Yeshua came on Saturday. It was supposed to be the Nameless Ones, and Yeshua came, and he's going to come again, and you're invited sometime in the middle of December. What
Let me
we
know. I want to listen. I want to be there.
and well, if you
Me
and if
too.
we can do a session. Mary Magdalene channels through me. Yeshua channels through me, and so does the Nameless Ones. So we can do that. I'm very happy to do that because they have messages for us. They
So,
want us to
so
understand.
can we do it as a broadcast or a podcast, or we just do
Sure,
it?
sure. No, any way you want to do it.
That'll be because this way everybody can get involved, one way, and then those who feel inspired or moved, who want to follow up with you, on one-on-one or whatever, we could do it. So let's make a date to do that because I'm definitely on board with that.
We can also, if it's easier for you, we can also do all three at the same. I could do like half an hour of this, half an hour, or whatever you want. It
Let's do
really.
all three. Let's do all three, and then we'll have it in one little package. Because I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
a lot of people interested in this. I know for a fact.
Martha,
Martha. Okay. Yeah.
Mary's sister.
Yes.
She feels like a big antagonist here, and she never really, until the very end, because she's jealous of Mary and her relationship with Yeshua, and she has all these doubts, and she keeps creating all of this darkness in amongst this light. Can you give us some information there about her?
Well, Martha was a real thorn in Mary's side. And Mary loved Martha very much, but it wasn't love that Martha needed. It was a purpose, and she didn't have one that she knew. And so she kept trying to diminish Magdalene's purpose in some way, or to prove that she was more beautiful, or whatever seemed in the moment to be her intention. And so Mary felt always like there was a shadow next to her. And later on, there is this betrayal that Martha does. And it's interesting because it leads Mary to leave where they are in France and to go on her own ministry. And if we think about all of these ironies of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? When these things happen to us that are seemingly betrayals or make us heartsick or even some kind of a diagnosis, it leads to something else. It leads to growth and expansion. And Magdalene leaves and she goes on her own ministry. And that's where, she becomes this midwife that offers her consciousness to anyone who needs it. And then she eventually meets up with Yeshua, and they do their beautiful parting when he's ready to make his transition.
And the other thing that is not mentioned, and I'm sure people will ask about this, you talk about Mary and Yeshua as them being born and then being young children. But there's no mention of virgin birth here. And it makes sense to me that Yeshua was born as any normal child would be born as a human being. I'm curious to know what you feel about that.
Oh, I have had so many different people approach me about that. I had a woman approach me one time who had been to Turkey, and she had been at in the home of Mother Mary, and she had received very strong information and guidance that Mother Mary had been raped by a Roman soldier. So we have so many stories. And I remember I was in California and there's this woman, she said, well, I was Magdalena, and she's going on and on and on. And I said, okay, and she was in the audience and she was accosting me a bit, how Hollywood can be. Um, and, and I said, well, this is just my story. If there's 144 aspects of Magdalene, we all had one different perspective, a different perspective, like the diamond, we were seeing a different facet. And all I can tell you is this is the story that felt most accurate to me. And I acknowledge that it may not be true. But when I ask Mary about it, she says it is to bring the beliefs together so that all of the beliefs can do whatever they do and then they can fall away because it doesn't matter.
You've been out there with this book for decades.
Yes.
And when people approach you, how do you get people that are total naysayers that are just don't want to listen to you at all, that kind of like put the curse up on you for writing something like this? Then you have those who are deeply embedded in this story. What has been your reaction here?
Well, for example, Saima loves my book. She asks all of her individual students, devotees, to read it. And I'm working with a lot of her individual devotees in Canada at the time. She said it's extremely accurate. I've never had anyone come to me and say anything negative about the book. Now, maybe that's because I'm protected. I've sold a lot of copies, I haven't ever advertised it really. I'm just here, and people who find this community and find the book and so forth are drawn by the vibration. And whether every single thing said in that book is their experience or something they could understand even or believe, I don't know. But the bottom line is that there's some connection that's formed that's very strong and that's based on love. And that's all I know.
That's it. I mean, we've been talking about that. We talked about that with Mary Medeiros in our last podcast with the Akashic Records. Now, Yeshua had, his whole thing was about love, the heart center, and he had a very strong feminine aspect that resonated within him, as you said earlier. Yet people that are followers of the church, whichever church, it's hard for the men to understand this feminine aspect. How do you give them hope or create this feminine movement inside of them, that they can open up that side of them without feeling like they're giving some of their masculinity away?
Well, I don't work with it so much as masculinity as perhaps a sense that there's a societal imprinting that's happened, and that societal understanding of what is strong or what is the correct way to act in the face of love actually changes. It's as if there is a flame that burns part of it away, and not because I try to tell them anything about their masculinity, but rather because they see other men being softer in their strength at the same time. It's not either or. And that seems to be what society says. You have to be this or this. And what we find in individuals, particularly, for example, individuals who do the soul recognition, the men who do the soul recognition, they find inside of themselves a grace that comes from the divine, and then that starts to, because actually the divine masculine is here to protect. It's here to keep us safe. It's here to use strength in a way that keeps all of us in balance. And that's what's off. The balance is not there.
That's a beautiful way of explaining it, rather than in the patriarchal way of domination and the feminine way of submission. So it's really finding the balance. And if everybody understood that, there would be less breaking apart of the imagery. So now I want to move on to your soul support systems. Let's talk about that for a while. It seems you bring together teachings, trainings, and community work. For someone discovering you for the first time, what is the core mission of what you offer to the public?
Experience. Everything is experiential. So you find your own heart. You figure out through what we teach how to balance vertically all your energy system, your whole central channel, and all that's involved in that. You learn how to ground and connect to the Mother Earth. We do meditations Monday through Friday that are free, that are on Zoom. And people can come, and we have a lot of people in our community who give those different meditations. I do them sometimes, but I don't do them all the time. We empower individuals to find their strength and to demonstrate that, and to have that within our group. Every Tuesday at 1:00, we have the Heart Thread. We call it witnessing, because every human being has the same challenges, whether they're exhibiting them or not. We all go through pretty much the same teaching process. And we have, I do the mental work. It's called Accelerated Thinking, and that I do individually. There's not a lot on my website about what I do. I don't market myself, really. People find me if they want to find me. The community is a very strong advocate for, I would just say, acknowledging the beauty and power of each person. And so we have a lot of different offerings. I do leadership trainings, and I'm working a lot in Canada right now. We're going to be working with horses in Florida in the spring. I do a lot with how do we connect through the soul with other people, with other species, with the earth, with the heavens. It's kind of this whole opportunity to just delve into what does it mean to be human and spiritual at the same time.
So this is a global organization with teachers around the world. Now, your meditation that people can join through Zoom. People that have been meditating for a long time, like we go back to the 70s, we've been meditating through that. We all feel we've got our meditations down. There's those who are a little more endowed with, spiritual height than others, that wonderful hubris. I can meditate better than you can meditate. But this is open to everybody. And when people come to you, it seems that if you could explain what the meditations are like and how there are beginners and intermediates and the people that have been doing this for incarnations coming to your site.
Well, it depends on who's leading. But most of the time, what we work with is there are 4 principles of creation: order, light, truth, and union. So those 4 principles of creation we work with. Sometimes we have an order matrix in our body that we open and work with. Not every time, depends who it is. We have a chamber that we go to in the earth, and we have a rock or a crystal down into the center of the earth with our name on it and our footprints. So we go down there and we ground into the earth. I work with the Galactic Federation. Sometimes we'll go aboard a ship, and their whole premise is everything's unified. It's unity. So you step on board there and you feel what unity's like. Sometimes William Marshall was come. He's the greatest knight that ever lived. I work with William Marshall and his Sword of Truth. So sometimes it'll be that. Sometimes for Easter or July 22nd, Magdalene's feast day, I will channel Mary Magdalene and we'll go to Banyas. And sometimes it's going into the center of a tree. Or feeling like you're being able to be in the ocean, holding a dolphin. It doesn't, it's all over the map. And it's a guided meditation. So a lot of people who, like you, have a practice may find that that's a little bit tedious listening and trying to, but that's what it is. Wednesdays, we have a prayer circle. So this morning I led a prayer circle. And we have a healing list, and we put the names of people we know. Many people who come on to the healing prayer process on Wednesdays have a psychotherapeutic practice or some kind of practice. They have a lot of people, and we pray together. And then we have more or less a silent meditation for a little bit. And we have one of our members of our community who has a ministry in Rwanda. She brings pictures, and we look at very beautiful images, and then she'll read a poem or something, and then we'll meditate to that. So it's varied. On Fridays, we have French Friday. It's translated actually as it's given. So we have several translators in Canada, and we have a large French community that's growing. And someone either in French or in English will lead a meditation that will be translated into the other language for people. Usually the meditations are a half an hour maximum. If someone's really concise, it might be 15 or 20 minutes. When I lead, it's always 30 minutes. And on Fridays, it's always 30 minutes.
Do you have dates and times listed on the website
Yes.
for each week, or is it the same every week?
Same every week.
But you have it listed on when people can come, and
Yes.
how do they get links to the meditations? Do they have to subscribe to the website?
No, well, no, you don't. You can just link in, go in. We have a free membership. I've put up I have scads and scads of recordings and transcriptions from all the channelings I've done. And I've put them up. We have a free membership. You can go on and you can enter into that, and you can read everything and listen to everything that we have up there. And like, for example, the Yeshua one that I did on Saturday, which would have been the 15th of November, you can go into the free membership and you can go listen to that. You can listen to anything that you'd like to, that we have up there.
But with the free membership, people can come on and join the Zoom link, the Zoom call, correct?
Well, what I'm saying is, on the free membership, you can go in and see things that have been already recorded. For the morning meditation, if you go way down to the bottom of the home page, there's a link there. You can get right on. You don't have to join anything. Yeah, you just get on. It's free.
Great.
Flo, I'm an actor, and you're doing the movie, so I want to roll in your movie now. It doesn't have to be Jesus. Joseph of Aramea might. I definitely could get into Judas consciousness, but the real thing I want to say is I'm looking really forward to for our next. When we do the live demonstration, we're going to do the three channelings or whatever you want to call them. I'm looking forward to that. But what I like most of all, perhaps, because I'm kind of an iconoclast, or at least I think of myself as being a bit of an iconoclast. So what I loved about your book in particular was that it kind of like, if not blows apart, certainly calls into question all like the fundamentalist mindset of not only, let's say, Christians, but all fundamentalist mindsets where, hey, here's another story, by the way. We're not saying, well, this is true, this is false, but here's another option here. Like maybe if Jesus didn't die on the cross and was resurrected 3 days later, that's the whole linchpin of Christianity. Victory over death. O grave, where is thy sting? O death, where's thy victory? So in other words, whoa, we have a whole new thing. So what I like is now it's incumbent not upon somebody listening and receiving and believing, like somebody's story. you, meaning me and every individual, has to go look for themselves and decide. It's not just about accepting somebody's dogma. So that was good. So it's another story. So let's take a look here and let's investigate. But again, what's the main thing here? The main thing is what we could call the death of duality, or duality, being seen for the illusion that it is.
Yeah. And that we have a light inside of us. And that's one of Magdalene's sayings to me is, what we think we have lost is yet the promise of what is to come. And we have light inside of us, and no one can take that away. We are light, and light we shall remain. Those are like her fundamental understandings, that we're going to create a different reality. And I don't really believe that she has completed her job yet. I think she's still with us. We can see that. So many people are connecting to her. And she's calling us emissaries of light. She really wants us to get the light out there and to make sure that everybody sees it without beliefs. See, that's the whole deal. Without beliefs.
I think that's the key right there. As long as you're a believer, well, you're just that. You believe that such and such is true. Okay, you're a believer, fine. But you're not a realizer. You're not an experiential. You don't have you know about the thing perhaps, but you don't know of it. In other words, through your own direct experience, and that's where the rubber meets the road. So that's what I like about everything you have to say.
And that's what I like about Stefan's comments about the book, is it takes you into that vibration.
And I'm wondering, the people that come to your meditations, have you had experiences where they've actually accessed Mary the way you did and have that same download come into them? Has she spoken to other people the way she's spoken to you because of your group meditations? Because you seem to be, however we want to see it, and one of the things we learned when we were with the guru is that you can draw down peace, the vibration of peace. You can draw into yourself the vibration of light, and you can draw into yourself the vibration of bliss. And I'm wondering if they are sending these vibrations to people that are meditating on them through you at your meditations. Has anybody had that experience?
Not that they've told me about. That's a very interesting idea.
Have you thought about doing a Mary meditation, that where everybody is trying to bring in that feminine vibration?
Yes, we do that. We do that. Yeah, we do that. We do that. Yes. Yeah, bringing that in. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And nobody said, Mary just told me that this, that, and the other thing. And so I'm more aligned with it now than I was before.
Well, they're more aligned with it because it's touching something in them that they can find from Mary that then applies to where they are in their life. I think that's probably the most accurate thing I can say about it.
So instead of looking at Mary as like a physical human form, is there a way that she can express herself through meditation in a vibration, in a certain vibration? You mentioned the crystal before, and I was going to ask you if that was the same as the Merkaba that is talked about in sacred geometry. But is there a vibration that you can pull down that is strictly Mary? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I would have to say yes, because when I channel each individual, the vibration is very different. So when I channel Mary, that vibration comes in, and I do share that with with the people that are there.
In my meditations, and I'm sure other people have something similar, but when I sit down to meditate and I move into a deeper state, there's an energy, a physical presence that starts from the center of my chest, from the heart center, and expands out. I can feel it on my skin as though one would feel cold or heat, but it's a vibrational state that moves almost like electricity. And I can feel it inside expanding. And then there's a center to it that, so there's almost layers. And the center expands, and then there's a center inside that that expands, and a center inside that that expands. And with that expansion comes this sense of non-duality, this presence that we're one with whatever is beyond what we can see. I'm not even going to say the universe, because we can see the universe at night to some degree. But there's a place where source began this whole thing. And that's the place that you can, or at least for me, feel that non-dual state, that oneness. And I'm wondering if there's not an incantation, but something that we can meditate on to bring us into that that state that we've just all talked about here.
Okay. 3 times. I am light, and light I shall remain. And then 3 times. I choose union, I choose union, I choose union. That's how I connect with the realms that I speak from. And I do teach that, not a lot, but I do teach it if, people are wanting to do that kind of energy work as well. I am light, and light I shall remain 3 times. And then I choose union, I choose union, I choose union.
It's beautiful. I'm curious about something else, and that is the entities that coexist with us or not. The Pleiadians, the extraterrestrials, the others. Is there any understanding of that in the path that you follow?
Well, I do communicate with the Galactic Federation. We had, every time we go to Virginia Beach, they have a very strong presence there. And so we worked with them just in October, we were there. And they taught us to breathe through our feet, to give us 4 lungs. So in other words, like you've got your feet on the earth, and you breathe into the top of your foot, into the earth, and then from your earth through your foot up to the top, and you practice that. And that brings you into this realm of, it opens the heart almost immediately, and then it opens the awareness. So you're actually having this very beautiful woof happening. And we were practicing that next to the ocean, all week. It was very beautiful. I don't know too much about the Pleiadians. I know about the Galactic Federation in that they are here to assist us to understand what unity is so that we can choose it. You can't choose something you haven't experienced.
Right. And I guess we're trying to experience everything we possibly can. I mean, and
yes, of course.
Within our belief systems, though, that's where we get kind of wrangled in and caged. So we're not being expansive, right? So that's beautiful. And that breathing technique through the feet sounds very similar to the practice of Tai Chi, where there's energy moving all around. And even though that is more kind of electrical than the breath thing is, it seems similar to that. Would you say that? Do you know anything about Tai Chi?
Yeah, I've done some Tai Chi. Yeah, I was always more concerned about the positions. So I think for me, the breathing is much more simple. But it gets you into your body. If you're in your feet, you're in your body. Yeah.
And what about longevity? Can you give us the key to that?
Well, the ones with no names say longevity has to do specifically with being in vertical alignment as much of the time as possible. Most of us are giving and giving and giving, and horizontal is how the world tells us we need to relate, right? So aligning vertically, bringing in source through our central channel into the earth, back up and down. Then, particularly if we do that grounding on the earth, they say helps align the spine, helps the vision, helps all of the circuitry. And of course, order is where the body gets its rhythm and understanding from. And when we have an order matrix. We can do that sometime too if you want. Open the order matrix. We're not sent here. We're not sent here without tools, and the tools are, in a sense, embedded in our body. And so if we understand how to uncover what's in the body, we can begin to activate those etheric spaces within us that allow us then to foundation another reality other than the dogma that we've been acculturated to understand.
But on the other hand, what's interesting is that some of the great sages like Ramakrishna, Ramana Maharshi, got cancer. They died of cancer. Their height and breadth was not able to cure them. Perhaps that was their karmic end, the way their body was supposed to go. But, because we have this belief system that these spiritual masters are at such a great height that they can keep from getting sick. But that's not really the truth. And even your story about Yeshua, you never told how he died. You just said, he went.
Well, I did. I mean, in the end, well, he ascends.
Yes, but how did his body stop? It didn't stop from disease, or
No.
if it did, you didn't mention it. So I'm just curious about that.
No, it wasn't. It was just time for that to happen. I mean, there's an energy of it, and I think he was 99. I think that's what I received. He was 99, and yeah. I asked myself the same question. I have a really good friend, one of our facilitators, who's had a stroke. She's paralyzed on the left side, and I don't understand these things because she has an amazing heart. Beautiful, loving heart. And I don't know whether it's karmic or whether individuals take on from other individuals. It's an opportunity to think about, those who do a lot of healing. I don't know. It's a good question, Stefan. I don't really know.
I do think that people take on stuff from other people. I mean, especially if they're trying to work in that space that's a little above the physical and they're pulling in their vibration. If there's nasty stuff going on between the communication, it probably does have an effect. I mean, stress alone, our guru used to say he suffered from a bad back. He used to come into meditation and he was all bent over and, they had to help him up the stairs and to sit down.
No.
And he would tell us that he was taking on the karma of all the disciples, and it was affecting that exact place on his back and his spine. And it's possible because he did, from what we understand, die of a severe heart attack. So is that right, Gary? Is that what you heard as well?
Well, it's not what I heard. It's well documented. He died of a heart attack. He had a stroke and he died of a heart attack.
But he was unaware that he was going. It seems as though, from what we heard, that it was a big surprise to him, that it was a shock to his system.
From the account of the very loyal disciple who was with him at the time, the guru seemed to be completely shocked and afraid of what was going on. There was some like specter in the room or something. This was the account of the disciple that the disciple published. So that's all we have. Otherwise, it's all speculation. I never get into speculation because I don't see any value of it in it. Anything that's outside the realm of my own direct experience is just it's either hearsay or speculation or maybe this, maybe that. It doesn't mean anything.
That's a beautiful way to live.
Not to me anyway. Not to me anyway.
No, that's a beautiful way to live. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's why I'm so beautiful.
Yes, you are beautiful.
You
Yes, you
are
are. And
so
yet,
beautiful to me.
so
Can't you
so
see?
so Flo, he's auditioning now for the role of Yeshua.
Yeah.
No, Judas. I want to be Judas. I feel more in a Judas consciousness than Jesus.
Well, he was the best of all of us. That's
That's
what
why
we
I
have.
want the role.
That's what we have to realize. He was the best of all of us.
Well, we have a lot of hostile forces that we have to fight with these days, and it seems to be building up more and more. However, there seems to be a lot more people that are conscious of another level of spirituality that are kind of, I would say, neutralizing to some degree on this planet those hostile forces, and perhaps in the next decade or so, we'll move on from this. You mentioned gods, Gods. You don't just say God, but you mention gods in this book. Can you talk about that?
It felt when I was writing it like what wanted to be written and understood was that each of us have a connection to God, and it is the same for each of us. That there is not just one God that we pray to and that all people pray to. There are gods, and I don't know if it was like there's a source with different aspects or if there's all these different ones that we could look at, but it just felt like what was coming through was a new way of looking at source and a new way of understanding that each of us has a relationship with some aspect of that divine. And it may not be the same as anyone else's, and yet it's accurate, it's real, it's truthful, and it opens us to remember that that divine energy and source is, in a sense, ours to claim as our own in some way.
Well, that's exactly what I felt when I read that because I immediately thought that we are the gods. Each one of us are all these gods, having this experience that we decided we wanted to have, and that this whole concept of a hierarchy is kind of like ridiculous, that we're all that divine being and we are all the gods. So that really was made a big impression on me. Thank you for that. Would you like to give us something that we can wrap it up? We've had a really nice conversation here.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what you said about the influences around us. The ones with no names talk about it like a rubber band. Okay. So the left is going this way, the right's going this way, and there's so much tension that the actual rubber band is going to break, right? And everything's going to fall into the middle, right? Right? So we're in the middle. We're in a neutral, harmonious space awaiting the presence of those who are searching for something other than that dualistic, judgmental experience. So this is why we're carrying this torch, is so that we can enlighten anyone that's ready to be enlightened, and not by an epistemology, but from the heart, from the part that cares and helps them belong, because so many people are alone, they don't feel like they belong anywhere. So this is really, I think, what our magnet is together, the three of us, to come together and to really begin to create alliances that then touch many, many other kinds of people, other than the ones that I would touch or that any one other person would touch. And that's why we have a lot of facilitators. When I do anything, I am not by myself. We share power. We come together and show people how they can align with each other and connect and create something totally different than we're used to. And it's magic, because when we're in that space, there's no way that dualistic or duality or any of that stuff can exist, because it's not vibrationally possible. And that's what we have to do everywhere we can.
Thank you, Flo. You're very inspiring. And we're both looking forward to you coming back and doing some really beautiful work on our podcast again.
Thank you so much. So much enjoyed being with you each.
Thanks, Flo. It was really great. Loved it. Can't wait for part 2 of our ongoing series. Who knows where this is going to go?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I so appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much for inviting me.